Another Heritage Signature Auction is in the books, and this time around we saw $1.8 million worth of video games sell at open auction, led by this impossibly rare factory sealed Sculptor's Cut 9.4 A++ condition for $175,000. This video today is going to talk about that Sculptor's Cut and the auction that just happened, but it's also going to be an overall talk about the sealed and graded games market, where we're at right now, and what might happen as we enter into 2025. Depending on how broad your economic lens is, you may have seen now that crypto is exploding, Bitcoin is fighting to get over the $100,000 mark, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ are sitting very close to their record high prices, money is again flowing through sports cards and Pokemon, we're seeing scalping, mania, greed like we haven't seen since 2021. I know I talked about this felt hat Pikachu before. The PSA 10 has almost 31,000 examples on the pop report, and that's just PSA alone, and the price of the card is now pushing well over $400. I think it was $300 the last time I talked about it earlier this year. But as it is, money is flowing everywhere, greed and speculation is increasing, so are graded games also seeing a pump take place? And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. But first, I do have to give a quick mention to today's video sponsor, Heritage Auctions. You can create a completely free account at heritageauctions.com, which allows you to browse the entire sold archive of video games to help guide your buying and selling decisions. Weekly auctions take place every single Tuesday, and we watch them live right here on my YouTube channel, as well as special showcase and signature auctions like this one right here, where some of the rarest and most expensive video games in the hobby continue to sell. If you're interested in consigning with Heritage Auctions, you can reach out via email at videogames@ha.com, or you can use the link in the description to reach out to one of the consignment experts, get free appraisals on your stuff. Big thank you to Heritage Auctions for sponsoring, and let's get back to the video. So Sculptor's Cut, the single rarest game in the retail North American N64 library, sells in brand new near mint factory sealed state for $175,000. If there's anyone in the world who still doesn't know this, Clayfighter Sculptor's Cut was a Blockbuster rental exclusive, which makes finding the box and manual especially, basically impossible. The game was sent out and immediately gutted by stores for use in rental, and if the box and manual did happen to be rented out with the cartridge, they were very unlikely to ever be returned. Just looking at TerraPeak sold listings here, it looks like the last sale for an actual complete copy of Sculptor's Cut was about $5,700 earlier in May, and you can see even in this single photo here, it's in very used condition. The box has obvious wear, the manual is covered in crinkles, the cartridge has marker on it. Like, this is not a nice copy of the game. $5,700 back in May. There was also this box and manual copy here, so no cartridge included, for $3,500, and again, you can just see even in these few photos here, this box has a lot of obvious wear to it, and the manual doesn't even have the front cover. So how do you even rate this for a condition, right? Like, it's pretty poor condition here, $3,500. Box and manual only. So we take all of that, how hard it is to even just find used pieces of this game, and you multiply it by 100x when we talk about factory sealed. This is one of only 3 known copies to even exist in factory sealed state. And that's why we end up with it selling for almost $200,000 here. And I think it's a good sale. I think that's a strong sale. I'm not sure any other N64 games would sell for this much money except for probably Mario 64 in 9.8 A++. Even Super Smash Bros. Here, 9.8 A++, this sold at the exact same auction for $50,000. A couple of years ago, this game was selling for $200,000. Earlier this year, it sold for $90,000, and now it's down to $50,000. That should help emphasize just how impressive it is that Sculptor's Cut is still selling this high. As for sales records on factory sealed Sculptor's Cut, they basically don't exist. I think this is the first time it's ever been publicly auctioned in the history of video game collecting, so there's some history for you. But there was a private sale that took place for one of the other known sealed copies. The details are $100,000 cash plus $100,000 trade. So $200,000 for a different copy of Sculptor's Cut, which I'm sure the buyer or the person who traded for that other copy was very, very, very happy to see this copy here almost at least get to that $200,000 mark, or maybe they were disappointed this didn't go even higher. I would personally be relieved to see this one hit a $175,000 price tag, and who knows how many years it will be before we ever see this game come up for open auction again. There was also a Nintendo World Championships gray cartridge for $52,500, WATA 5.5, kind of a mid-grade copy. This is just kind of where NWC has settled at this point. We've seen one sell every 6 months here for the past year, 2 years, so NWC is actually coming up a decent amount. People have been buying them, locking them into new collections, and right around $50,000 for these 5 6.0 condition copies is that's just where they sit right now. It's a bit weird sitting here acting like NWC is common all of a sudden, but they just keep coming up for sale. The Super Smash Bros., like I said, for $50,000 and Pokemon Red for $42,500 I want to talk about a bit here. So back in August this year, we had the same variant, same grade, 9.88 plus Rattata Pokemon Red sell for $118,750, which back in my last video, I said this was crazy. Basically, everyone agreed that this price was crazy. It absolutely exploded. I don't know why. So now seeing this copy sell for $42,500 isn't a bad sale. It's not price coming down. This is back to reality. This is where that other copy should have sold for, or somewhere in this price range, right? And as a whole, actually, just to touch on the Pokemon games that were in this auction, Pokemon results were actually very steady, if even a bit flat compared to what expectations might have been. And given what we're currently seeing in the Pokemon card market with money and hype being thrown around, it's honestly a bit surprising that we aren't seeing more overlap already in the sealed and graded Pokemon game market. I can only speak for myself, but I did expect to see a little bit of pump in this auction. And coming up in the next signature auction in February 2025, we can already see that there is an insane Pokemon lineup coming, including Pokemon Blue, Yellow, Silver, Gold, Red, Crystal, all 9.8 A++ condition. So this is going to be a huge test for high-end Pokemon games, for high-end sealed games in general come next February. We also had Chrono Trigger 9.6A plus CGC for $23,750, Mega Man X2 9.6A plus for $23,750. Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3 here have always been incredibly difficult, incredibly rare to find factory sealed. I'm sure most of you guys know the cartridges, CIB copies are also very expensive. VGA 80 Mega Man X3 went for $20,000, so Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3 always been grails, basically impossible to find factory sealed. Very expensive sales on both of them. Just touching on the Mario Bros games quickly here. We did have Mario Bros 1, Mario Bros 2, and Mario Bros 3. There it is. 9.4A plus Mario Bros for $18,750 and 9.8A plus Mario Bros 2 later print for $18,125. And the interesting thing about this Mario Bros 2, right? $18,000 for 9.8A plus. That's a very solid sale here. That's showing some strength. This is an oval seal later production copy, and it actually outsold this 9.6A plus CGC early production copy, which has the little circle seal on it here. This is an early print over here. That's later print. This early print only sold for $12,500, which a lot of people were thinking might be the steal of the auction rate here. Obviously 9.8 condition versus 9.6, WATA Games versus CGC, but a $6,000 price gap. I myself do feel like the first edition, first print game, even in slightly worse condition, should outsell the later print game, but clearly the bidders felt otherwise, and those are the people actually willing to pay almost $20,000 for the game. But taking a step back here from individual auction results to talk more broadly, going back to the video I made last August where I talked about the signature auction state of the market at the time, the phrase or motto that I was using was cautiously optimistic. And this is from the speculator investor making money angle. I had cautious optimism about the sealed and graded market following that auction. If you guys remember, that August signature was absolutely juiced with rare and expensive games top to bottom. That had a lot of the Dallas-Fort Worth collection, which introduced games that we had never seen for auction before, extremely early prints, super mint examples. Like, it was a crazy auction. It was by far the strongest auction of 2024. So then coming into this auction, and again, I can only speak for myself here, but coming into this November signature, I definitely had some expectation that we were going to see a continuation of this pump, if you want to call it that, a continuation of momentum for pricing. And while this auction and most of the results were very solid, this auction does feel like a bit of a step backwards to me. And I know that probably isn't what you want to hear if you're someone who's heavily invested in sealed and graded video games, or you're banking your whole future on sealed and graded games, but I do also want to be honest with you guys about my own view on what's taking place right now. And if you're a collector who just likes buying this stuff, you have no intention of making money, you don't care about all that, then this should be music to your ears. That's why a lot of us are here, right? We just like collecting video games. But seriously, a lot of what I saw during this auction mirrored what I've already been saying throughout 2024. There are some games that are doing really well, like your Marios, your Zeldas, your super popular games. Those are all showing some pretty good strength across the board. And then there are many games that are just showing incredible stability right now. Very steady sales, say 10% within their last comps, right? Up or down. Just just very steady between auctions. And then there still are some games going down compared to their last sales. In making a video about the sealed and graded market right now, I could cherry pick 20 examples of games doing super well, and I could make a video that graded games are going to the moon, everything is perfect, look at these results. And I could also cherry pick 20 examples of games that are going down, that aren't looking good, and I could make the narrative that graded games are dead, the whole market's dying. And keep in mind, at this very auction, I spent $2,600 on Yoshi's Story for N64 because I just thought it was too cheap. I very much have new money sitting in this hobby as well. So for the most part, I see that things are still very steady despite us now being in a plus economy. Like I said at the start of the video, we have record prices for crypto, record prices for TCG, near all-time highs for ETFs, like money is flowing. Yet graded games are still quite calm. The assumption that I have at this time is that some of this money will eventually come over to graded video games. I doubt we're going to see anything even close to what we saw in 2021, but I do expect to see a general uptick on the price of most sealed and graded games. Just overall interest in prices increasing in this hobby as we enter into 2025. This of course does assume that the current economic climate does continue. A big risk with stuff like this when you have a plus economy going up, but you have a asset class or whatever you want to call it, when it's stagnant, is that everything else might go up and everything's doing great, and then as soon as the economy turns, as soon as stuff starts going down, even though graded games didn't pump, they will also go down if the economy goes down. I'm sure anyone watching this video has bought a crypto or a stock or something, and you watched as everything else went up and your stock or crypto didn't do anything. But then as soon as other things started dumping, yours also dumped. It's not what I think is going to happen, but it's that risk that I keep in the back of my mind when I decide how much money I want to put into this stuff. The reality is that sealed and graded video games are not a wider market leader. This hobby is still niche in the grand scheme of graded collectibles. Comics, TCG, sports cards, those are all behemoths in both the size of the market, the number of participants, dealers, all that stuff compared to games. Because of this, we're likely always going to see the market move in other categories, other assets, before we see it in games, and games will be far more reactionary versus being first movers. People making money in other categories will then move some money into graded games. With this, it could still be another 6 to 12 months before we see clear and obvious uptrends taking place in this side of the market, before this hobby catches the attention of speculators, flippers, investors, whatever. Because it's kind of funny, a lot of people like that, a lot of people in general only want to participate in something once the price is already going up. Me sitting here and telling you guys that this market is relatively stable and there's still fantastic buying opportunities, well, that's boring. That is boring. So as we close out 2024 and head into 2025, yes, there are still amazing opportunities, and yes, I do think this market is going to see some pop here in the near future. I think there's simply too much money floating around in the economy, and once we see all of these other things pump, cards have pumped, cryptos pumped, stocks are pumped, people find different things to put money into that haven't pumped yet. The wave of money and speculation just tries to find the new hot thing. It's the same reason why during 2021 we saw VHS explode, DVDs, music CDs, cassettes. It was just one thing after the other, always going to the next thing. And sometime in 2025, maybe leading into 2026, I do expect video games to be a target of one of these waves. As always, I say all this stuff, but hedge your bets as much as you can, diversify into real assets, make sure you have real investments leading the way, and don't hang to every word of a guy who spends $2,600 on Yoshi's Story on N64. I'm clearly insane. But say thank you to every single patron who helps support the channel, as well as the YouTube members. I can't do this without you guys. Let me know what you think of the sealed and graded market here as we close out 2024. Hit the like button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.